Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm just going to be talking about books that I've been reading recently. And I know that sounds like a little bland, but honestly, I have been reading so much recently, and I'm already a student, a full-time student, so I read those books that come with my textbooks, but I've recently picked up reading books on the side, which I used to not do. For some reason I thought it was weird to read books. I was like, I don't read. Don't know why I was ever in that phase, because that was kind of stupid of me. But here we are. Look, I've grown. So now I just really love reading books, and I've gone through a good amount. I have a collection now. I feel so adult. But I just wanted to go through the ones that I've been reading recently over the summer and just talk about why I've been liking them, because they really are just so good. There's just some the best books I've read in a really long time. Plus there's so many psychological benefits to reading, not only because it makes you smarter, but it also wards off any neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's or dementia. And so it just has there's no harm that can come from reading more books, no harm that can come from furthering your education in any way, whether it be academically or just within your own readings that you pick up by yourself. So let's just jump into it. First of all, I've talked about this in one of my vlogs before, which I'll link down below if you guys want to watch, but this is one of my favorite books. It's called Experiencing God Day by Day, and it's not a book, it's a mini devotional series that has tiny short devotionals, but these things will slap you in the face. They are so good, but not for an immature Christian. They're very much ones that are meant for mature Christians. I would say Jesus Calling is the baby food version of it, which is good, but it's a little bit more feel good. This one is if you want to be a Christian and know and learn what it means to really be a Christian, this is how you can assess your actions and then say wow, I need to change this. And it's just so theologically sound that I just really like it, and it's short, so if I don't have time to read a full chapter of a book or something that day, I can just sit and read this and still get my Jesus time in and still read a little bit and give myself downtime almost, just to sit and be still. But it's not too long to where if I don't have an hour to spare, just read this. Alright, next I have this book. This is the There Is More by Brian Houston, and I actually got this one for free because I went to the Hillsong concert, and it was a touring one, but it was basically the There Is More book tour as well, along with their There Is More album. So everybody that attended the concert got this book, and I don't think I would have bought it if I hadn't gone to the concert, but then because it was just sitting on my shelf, I was picked it up. It's literally so good. It is about when the world says you can't, God says you can. And that sounds pretty simple, but I'm telling you, it's much more complex once you actually start to read it. But it just really dives into what it means to really go after a dream, and not just your own desires dream, but also aligning yourself with God's desires and then finding what that more means. The Ephesians 3:20, I will do far more abundant. What's the verse? It's now to him who is able to do far more abundantly than you could ever ask or think or imagine. Something like that. That's basically what this book is about, but it's what does that more mean for you? And what does that mean in the context of God's will for your life? And how can you dream up that kind of more and then also attain it? And it's really good. It's not a self-help book at all. It's very biblically based, and I don't know. I just really like reading this. I don't read this as fervently as I have these books that I'm about to talk about, but this one still is really good whenever I have free time to just sit down and read it, because it's still a good book. Next, I have this book. Rayleigh and Jacob, my sister and her boyfriend, started reading this together because they love Audrey and Jeremy Roloff, which are the writers of this book, and they started reading it together, where they're actually so cute. It's written from Audrey and Jeremy's perspective, so part of the chapter will say Jeremy on it, and it's Jeremy writing, and then it'll go down and it'll go to Audrey, and so it'll talk about that, but it's from their perspective, but they still tackle the same subject, and it's them telling their love story and how they pursued each other creatively, dated intentionally, and loved faithfully, and how to do that yourself. They show you that by telling their own story through it and how they did it and where they messed up and then what they learned. And dude, I picked this up because I stole it from Rayleigh's room. It is so good. I started reading it with a friend, and so they live far away, and we'll just call and talk about it, but it's like so good. We usually try to like just do one chapter at a time, and whenever I went to camp with my students last week for our church, I was in the bus with a bunch of high school boys, and this chapter was so good. I like zoned out on everything they were talking about, and I just like went and finished a chapter in like 20 minutes, which is like crazy for me because it usually takes me a little while to read. But it's one of the most well-written books that I've read in a really long time, and just the principles that you learn from it are so good. It does kind of dig up some like nostalgic hurt almost whenever it like talks about their past, and then it reminds you of your past and like how you have grown and also struggled, and it really calls that out in you. But then in a good way it calls it out, because then it's like, now that you're conscious of it, let's fix it and let's change it and do this. So like in your next relationship, because I'm currently single, like in your next relationship you can learn to be more intentional. You can learn like the principle of sharing, and I think it's just a really, really good book, so well written. And you can read it as a single person, a dating person, whether you're engaged or you're married and like trying to keep up with having a healthy marriage. This book is just so good, and it kind of like reignites a fire in you. So I loved watching Rayleigh and Jacob talk about it, and I was like, I really want to read this now. So I stole it and I read it, and it's so good. I'm only halfway through and I'm obsessed. This is my favorite book. I haven't even gotten through chapter 1 yet because I just got it like 2 days ago. But this one's my favorite because it's written by Dr. Carolyn Leaf, and I've already read one of her books before, and I love it, mainly because she talks about the brain. And, you know, I love the brain because neuropsych over here. But she is like a writer of many different books. Let me just read what she is, because she kind of does a lot of things. So I don't want to mess up what she is. So hold on. She researches the science of the thought and mind-body connection as it relates to thinking, learning, emotions, renewing of the mind, and healing from traumatic brain injuries and other neurological mind issues. She's basically just like super cool, but she does it all from a biblical basis. Like, she's such a hardcore preacher of like, science is just now catching up with the Bible, not the other way around. And she just uses verses in a way that I've never seen before to apply it back to science, to say like, we're just now finding this like through qualitative evidence that this is happening, but the Bible said it in a different way, but it means the exact same thing thousands of years ago. So it just shows just like the sovereignty of Christ, but then also the sovereignty that we have over our own minds and the power that we have over our own minds and our thoughts. And so this one's about achieving the perfect you, which basically is just like a blueprint for identity, as she calls it, but she goes through it from a very scientific perspective that's still digestible for people that aren't in the sciences at all or not educated in the sciences in that way. But she uses the Bible and science and her own research findings to all like come together in this one beautiful flower of like, here you go, here's how you find your identity, here's how you live in the most perfect version of yourself, not because you created it, but because God gave you the power to assume this role that he already placed in you at the beginning of time. And so I'm only like a few pages into the first chapter because I've been taking my grandma to radiation, and I try to read it there, but it's like you don't have enough time to finish a chapter. So I've made it halfway through the preface and the acknowledgments in chapter 1. But it is so good already. Like, I'm already hooked on it. But I will let you guys know and keep you guys updated on my Instagram on how much I'm loving this and what I'm learning from it. So don't forget to follow down below. But this is just a really, really cool book that I'm excited about. She already has another book, and I wasn't planning on talking about this, but let me just go get it. Never mind, I gave it to a friend because I'm that obsessed with it. But she has another book. It's called Switch on Your Brain, and it is so good. And it has like the first half is like a book, and the second half is something that's like more of a workbook almost, where it's still a book but you're interactive with it, and it is just so cool and just like mind changing and mind blowing. And she's just such a blessed and anointed speaker, writer, everything. She has podcasts that she has on like Spotify or iTunes or any place that you can get podcasts from, as well as like a YouTube channel. And she just has like some of the best material because she talks about psychology, and she talks about neuroscience, and she talks about the mind-brain connection and how it also relates to your body, but also from a very grounded theological perspective. So it's just so trustworthy as a Christian to find someone who's so advanced in the sciences that's also biblically sound, because I feel like nowadays it's kind of hard. People try to start walk that line and then cross that line, and then it's not as trustworthy or reliable because it typically contradicts the Bible. But she has found a way, which there always has been a way, to get science to not only support the Bible, but show that the Bible was there and knew it before science ever caught up to, and that science was wrong in our first assumptions. And now we're finally saying like, oh, okay, so like God was right when he wrote this. Shocker. But it's just a really cool book, and I've just been loving these books. And I like reading so much now. I don't know why in high school I was like, I don't read, because that was just so prideful of me almost, to feel as if like I didn't need that kind of education, or that there was no purpose or point or effort that was necessary for me to put into reading. But it's just all about furthering yourself. It's all about growing yourself, because that's all Christ has called us to do. Is like, we're not supposed to stay stagnant, not even in our mind-brain education. So whether you're out of school or in school or not planning on going to school anytime, like if after you graduate high school, do not neglect reading of some sort. Do not neglect furthering your education and growing your mind, because God honors education. God honors us growing in knowledge in a world that he has created. Like, he didn't just create it for us to just sit there and be like, okay, cool, God, that was great. No, he created it with all these other people in it to help further his name and advance his name, but also advance our knowledge, because he is a God of knowledge. He created it all. So why wouldn't he want us to know as we become more Christ-like? Why wouldn't he also want us to become more knowledgeable, in a sense, if Christ is knowledge? So I hope this encourages you guys to start reading, because there is so much benefit in it. There is so much intentionality that comes from it, and it really just helps you become a better version of yourself in the way Christ intended us to be. So thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys next week for my next video, and don't forget to like and subscribe down below. Also, do you guys want to see my fake dog tattoo that I got? It kind of ended up being a fail, because I got one that looked like butter, but the skin tone, or the flesh tone, hair tone, fur tone, whatever, ended up being the same color as my skin. So everybody else, you could see their dog tattoos, but from far away, I got told that it looks like I have a snake bite. So that was a bummer. But it's like a cute little dog right there. We got it from Rifle Paper Company. They had a street side sale, and they just had like a bunch of temporary tattoos of dogs. So of course it was like, we need to buy this. But I just kind of chose the wrong tattoo color. Oh well, it'll wash off in like 5 days. Anyways, I'll see you guys later.